I'd like to start with a question about your work to attract startups and having them scale up in Lisbon. What have you been doing? What you plan to do to keep attracting startups and scaling them up? And can you give an idea of the flow of investment and the flow of startups and scale-ups that have been developed here in Lisbon?
So this came from an idea when I was the European Commissioner for Science and Innovation, that Europe was very good in transforming money into knowledge, but was not good enough in transforming knowledge into money, being innovations. We are very good at research and science. So the idea of having this hub in Lisbon called the Unicorn Factory was this idea that innovation is about a process, like a factory. And so in these 3 years, we were able to attract a lot of talent. So we attracted 14 unicorns from all over the world that my only ask was to set up an office in Lisbon. And so they set up offices in Lisbon. Some of them set up offices with 10 people. Now they have 300 or 500 and some 1,000 people. And the interesting thing is that it was not about the unicorns, because they brought like more than 70 companies, 74 companies, that came along and created a lot of jobs. Companies that came in the tech sector and created more than 16,000 jobs in Lisbon. And so we have a factory where all this talent gets together, and that brings to Lisbon that ability of innovation and creating new companies. And basically we tell those stories, and those stories have been there for 3 years to tell what we've been doing and what people are doing about innovation. And Lisbon became the capital of innovation in Europe in 2023 with this story, with these unicorn factories. So we got that prize. It was a €1 million prize, but more than the money prize was about Lisbon becoming that spot that today is very unique.
And in terms of going forward in the next few years, what kind of flow of investment would you like to see? Flow of new companies arriving here or new startups here? Is there a number you can put on this trend?
No, look, I mean, there's different ways that you can look at it. So these 14 unicorns are worth more than $100 billion. And the Unicorn Factory itself, because we train companies to scale up, so the focus was scale up, not startups, but scale ups. We've helped those companies to grow, and those companies, the ones that went through our program, they have raised more than €1 billion already. And some of them are very successful. We have very good examples of companies that are associated to our program that are quite unique. I'm Cell Mabs, so it's a company that basically discover how to kill cancer cells directly without killing the good cells. And they've just been sold by €1 billion to BioNTech, which is part of Pfizer, actually to the man who created the COVID vaccine, the scientist called Hugo Sahin, is part of that team. And so that's something that was like created in Portugal, in Lisbon in this case. And so that's the vision. The vision is to keep that flow of talent coming. I believe that cities in the future will be just about competition of talent all around the world. So you have to be attracting the best talent. And so Lisbon wants to attract that. We have everything. We are kind of like a safe harbor today in the world by our geographical position, but also the way that we are governing the city to attract people and have this open city to everyone. And I believe that talent is the key and the differentiator to total factor productivity. So if you want more productivity, if you want more, like for people, if you want them to have a better life, it's about having more productivity, which is innovation. And innovation depends on that openness of a city more than a country.
Do you need anything from the central government in terms of policies to help attract that talent from abroad and to help retain talent in Portugal? Is there anything missing?
Oh, I need a lot. Of course, I need the reduction in bureaucracy that I've been fighting at the level of the municipality. I've been doing that at my level, but I need to do that at the level of the country. The country has to really decrease bureaucracy. It's very important for the country. In the municipality, we have done it. We have done it in our urban planning, which was very difficult to get license permits for construction, for instance. And in these 3 years, we have approved more than 8,000 units of housing, because housing is a real problem. You need to accelerate that. So we have reduced bureaucracy at that level, and we have invested ourselves a lot in housing. We have more than 560 million euros from the European Union, thanks to the European Union, that we are investing today in Lisbon and creating more housing for people that cannot afford rent anymore. It's the same in a lot of other cities, but I think we are probably doing the biggest investment in Europe.
I just want then to focus on the topic of housing. That investment figure you mentioned is over how many years, and what are your plans in terms of measures for housing in near term, medium term, short term, if you could break them down into those time periods?
So these 506 million are until 2027. And what we've been doing like short term is basically to help to pay rent. So if you are a citizen of Lisbon and you are having trouble because you pay more than a third of your income in rent, we pay the difference. So that was something that for us was crucial because the cycles of construction take 2-3 years. So we pay rent to people, for policemen, for teachers, for young professionals. And then at the same time, we are investing in building, and basically we've done 2,400 units, which half were newly built and the others were refurbished, because we also have a lot of assets, a lot of municipal assets that were kind of abandoned. So you have a lot of refurbishment that we've done. And so in 3 years, we were able to get more than 2,400 units. But more than that, I think Lisbon is an example. Today in Lisbon, 12% of the population live in municipal housing. It's not enough. I mean, the private sector has to do it. The private sector has to help us on that. And so we are basically also enticing the private sector to public-private partnerships, which is something that I've been fighting, but I'm in a minority government, so I'm not there yet, but I'm fighting to get, because I think it's important that the private sector also gives the example. And just around here where we are, we have more than 48 hectares where we can build 2,400 units of homes for the people of Lisbon. So housing is paramount, and it's paramount that you help people to pay rent, that you build, that you refurbish, that you use the private sector. There's no magic bullet. No one can solve the housing problem just with ideology, like the extreme left says, oh, everything has to be from the state or be municipal. It doesn't work like that. Or it has to be just the private sector. It doesn't work like that. It's a mixture. It's a balanced measures that you have to use.
And the involvement of the private sector in this respect would be with build-to-rent projects, that kind of
Yes,
idea?
very easy. We're doing that. Imagine we're doing not just with the private sector, we're doing it with people. So what we call cooperatives, where you actually give the plot of land for 90 years, 100 years, and so people have the land for free, and then they can build. So it's cheaper because they will build on something that is free. Then with the private sector, the idea was also to actually put them in a position that part of what they build, like 30% or 40%, would be for controlled rents. But then they will have a part of the project that will be free market. And so they'll have a part of their project that, because they get the land cheaper, then they have to build for the people with controlled rents. And so I think that you have to look in these different ways. If not, you never solve the problem. But the example of Lisbon today, in terms of investment, is quite unique, at least in Europe.
And moving on to tourism, how big is tourism now? How much does it represent in Lisbon's economy? And what's your strategy for tourism going forward in terms of number of visitors, in terms of the revenue per visitor? What are your plans for that area?
So Lisbon is a very important part of our economy. It's around 20% of the economy, 25% of the jobs. So it's very important, tourism. But we have to regulate tourism. And so first, I think that is important that in tourism, you look at tourism as a way to attract talent too. So a lot of people that come, that you can attract the best talent to create wealth, to create companies, to invest in Lisbon. That's very important. But today, Lisbon is a city where you have basically I had to increase the tourist tax. So I increased the tourist tax from €2 to €4, because I want to increase the quality of tourism. And then you have to diversify tourism around the city in a different way. And that's why I'm creating this cluster of contemporary art that is far from the center of the city, that goes along the river, with new museums. Just like we're talking about 4 or 5 museums that, like we're opening 2 museums in June. We just opened one yesterday. Museums that tell the story of contemporary and modern art in Lisbon, so people don't they are not always in the same places. Because the problem with tourism is that people concentrate themselves always in the same parts of town. So diversify the points in town where people can visit, because if not, people are always in the same place. Then increase the quality of tourism, and for that, regulation is important, increasing the tourism tax, we have put a tax on the cruises and that arrive to Lisbon. And so you have to basically do it twofold. But at the end of the day, tourism is extremely important for the economy. So you have to regulate because you care about tourism. It's not the other way around. But you really have to regulate tourism in terms of the quality of tourism in the city.
And in terms of the goals you have, or ideal numbers in terms of number of visitors, how do you see that evolving, in the next few years? What would you like to see?
Let's just give you an idea. Lisbon is a city that it's an open city. I mean, and receives and everybody, a lot of people come to this city. So if you look at the city, there's like 1 million people that come every day. They're not tourists. Like tourists is about 38,000, 40,000 a day. So this is also to get the relative proportions, because people sometimes they tell me, "Oh, there's so many tourists." Like, no, I mean, there's 38,000 in 1 million, like 1 million that gets in, gets out of the city and every day. So it's a pendular city. So we have to be careful not to have over-tourism. That's a question that a lot of people ask me. I don't think there's over-tourism. I think that tourism is important. Tourism is not everywhere in the city, so we have to spread it out all over the city. And then you really have also to control other parts of like short lettings. I mean, we have put a cap on short lettings because people in some parts of town, we had so much of short letting that people could not live in those parts of town. And I think tourists also don't want to visit a town where you just have Airbnbs or short lettings. So we have put a cap in some parts of town, in old town, but some parts of town now it's not possible to have more short lettings. But in the other way, the short lettings are also important for families that at the end of the months they receive some money by letting their apartments. So it's all about moderation, Joao, these days. I think that politics, it's you creating populism all over the world, extremism, and the most important value in politics is moderation. And so people are looking for moderate mayors and people that are balanced in their policies, that don't really think at the world at 0 or 1. I mean, the world has so many shadows of gray and in between. And so cities are about that equilibrium. And so, as you saw in my questions, I mean, there's always a flip side. There's always, tourism. Yes, we have to regulate, but it's important for the city. Housing cannot just be the private sector. The public has to do it, but cannot just be the public. And so that's where you build the vision of the city, is by this balance in between the different forces, different conflicts, different ways of looking into the city.
One question on mobility and investments in infrastructure. Lisbon's going to get a new airport, presumably in the south bank of the river. How is that going to change the city, and what's left in terms of investments that you'd like to do in terms of transport and other initiatives? I mean, we already know about the expanded cycle system, the free transport for senior people and young people. What's left to do in terms of mobility, especially taking into account the new airport?
So much. I think that, first of all, that decision was taken. So the airport will be on the south bank of the river. It will take a long time. But then we'll have this opportunity of look of that green city that we have. And if you look at what we've done in 3 years, we've built 30 hectares green park when the Pope came. So the Pope came, we had to prepare the land. And I said, this plot of land, which is huge, is like 30 hectares. This is going to be green. I don't want any construction here. Then yesterday on the municipality, we have just approved all the valley where we'll have the new central hospital of Lisbon and a huge green park, because it's almost 200 hectares where you'll build around 2,000 homes, but all the rest will be green. So that's around the new hospital. So that's the vision for that part of the city. And then just here, also very, very close from here, we have another plot of land that is around 48 hectares called the Saint Anthony Valley, Val de Santo Antonio. And that part we have also approved equipment, housing and green. I think that this transition to sustainability is extremely important. Transportation is extremely important, but as you said, we are one of the very few cities in Europe with free public transportation from the young and the elderly. We are one of the very few, if you have your ticket, your transportation ticket that is free for the young and the elderly, you can use the bikes for free, so you can bike freely with our bikes in the city. The bike lanes, we are building 90 kilometers, 90 more bike lanes in the city as I speak. We've just inaugurated and we'll launch a new tramway, totally electric, not fossil fuels, that will go down to the west part, the east part of town. And if you look at sustainability, let me tell you something. Our fleet of transportation, when I came, it was around 70%, 70, fossil fuels. Today is about 40% fossil fuels. So we have now just 40%. And by 2027, we'll get to 13%. So you basically will have 10% on fossil fuels. You'll have 90% on electric and other friendly, environment-friendly uses. And so that is also a big change, because we come from 70% fuel going back to 10% fuel on public transportation. There's every bus that we buy now is not on fossil fuels.
And one final question. Your term is about to end. Will you be seeking a second term? Local elections are scheduled for later this year. You haven't confirmed yet if you'll run again. What can you say in terms of your plans?
I think that my term is 4 years. I have a lot of things to do. The job is not yet done. And I have to keep focus on that. And so I'm not announcing anything. I'm not on it. I mean, we have legislative elections, parliamentary elections very soon in May. So it's not the time. The time is to keep focus on my work. I think that it was really 3 years of huge capacity of investment. We invested 1.2 billion euros. That was 456 million more than the mandate before me. And that was huge. I mean, I think it's pretty important to tell people, if you look at the number of schools, the number of kindergartens, and the number of health primary care units, we built, they're done, they're working, 21. And we are on the building, so we are constructing 17 at the moment. So if you do that in 3 years, that you're able to put together 21 schools, kindergarten, health units, I think that's a lot of work. And so that's why I cannot lose my focus now. But yes, there will be parliamentary elections, and then I'll think about it, and I'll come back to the people of Lisbon. But the people of Lisbon, in the street, nobody asks me that. They ask me about the problems, and I solve the problems, but they don't ask me about mandates and the next elections.